Have us go live. Okay. All right. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Technically Developers Conference. I'm Technically Managing Editor Julie Zeglen. I've been your MC throughout the day, so thanks for being with us. I'm here with Jarrod and Aaron Ricketts, and we are going to be talking about NFTs, aka non-fungible tokens, as well as the technical, business, and cultural impact of them. So everyone, thank you everyone in the chat already. I'm hoping that we're going to get a lot of questions for this one. We're going to start with sort of an explainer, but especially if anybody who's watching has any questions about the technical aspect of NFTs, please throw those questions into the chat. Jarrod, thoughtful technologist turned influential media executive who's taken a keen interest in NFTs and the creator economy. And Aaron Ricketts, Philadelphia-based photographer and digital artist who sold his first NFT of his work in March and technically profiled him then. So how about both of you get started by telling us a bit about the perspective that you're bringing to this conversation. I just gave a little bit of context, but tell me about how you first started to learn about NFTs and then your interest and how you're working with them now.
Cool. All right, well, I can start real quickly. I'm Jarrod. I oversee the commercial business at the Washington Post. So that really focuses on how we evolve our existing business streams, whether that's advertising or subscriptions or new product innovations. We also focus on new business ventures, which is really exciting. So like as we think about new opportunities that can maybe transcend what we're doing at the Washington Post, we have the ability to kind of like spin those out or focus on them and build businesses around those. I'm a former crypto CEO. I was the founding CEO of a company called Poet, which was at that time an NFT-based project. And I spend a lot of time with new NFT projects and new crypto-like projects like Mirror and Unlock Protocol and a bunch of others. So I love this space. I spend a lot of time building in this space. Apply to my day job and also love to be working with companies outside of that as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So again, my name is Aaron Ricketts. I'm photographer, visual artist, and creative director. I've been working for myself in the creative field for about 4 years now. I have my own little business called the Ricketts Company that I work from, and a lot of my work really consists of my personal work, which really dives in the realms of conceptualism and surrealism, but then also working with different brands ranging from Complex, High Snobiety, Adidas. We also work with different publications like the New York Times. And even now, I've just, as of recently, been a member of the International Center of Photographers Guild Local 600 and been starting to work on more film productions. One that everybody might have seen recently was Concrete Cowboy on Netflix with Idris Elba and Caleb McCullen. And so as far as like my perspective to this conversation, I'm on the artist side. And so I understand the concept of, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the blockchain for a while now. And I've been, I've always kind of been on the outside looking in, really focusing more on the IRL use of art and things of that nature. But, just recently with the conversation growing around NFTs, I decided to, really start, step my foot into the space and, going through that experience. And, as of this moment, I've sold 5 NFTs so far, and I actually have a couple projects and collaborations in the works surrounding NFTs and a couple other people involved in that space as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Aaron. So I love the perspectives that you're both bringing. For Joanne's sake in the chat, someone who has no idea what an NFT is, I would like each of you to give your definition, but like sort of briefly the way that we've described it technically, or at least the way that I understand it. So it is a non-fungible token. It is a digital token. Only one of it exists, although copies can be made. It can be anything from an image to a music to a tweet. My favorite example of an NFT is the Disaster Girl meme. I will drop that New York Times story here. But it's something that lives on the blockchain. So these are a lot of like descriptors, but maybe that's not like a great single definition. So could we start, maybe one of you could give like a kindergarten level definition, one could give like the grad level definition.
I think it's like a really, really simple explanation for like NFTs. So like if you think of like from the artist side, if you think of like a one-of-one like Picasso image like that lives and exists in real life, like an NFT could be considered the digital version of that.
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'd say like a way to think about NFTs too, like more, I'll give a more, I always like feel bad giving a roundabout response when people ask for definitions of hard questions, but I think that it's an interesting way to make it applicable. I mean, I think when things were physical, right, or when things are physical, it's very easy to acknowledge. So whether it's like the shirt I'm wearing or, you know, these posters on my wall, when things are physical and you actually own them, like they're yours, you know, you can trade them, you can hold them. They feel very unique. When the internet came about and when things went digital, that kind of like went away. Things were easily replicable. We see this every day when people create content and then someone else copies that content, or someone else is able to like take an image and copy an image. And to kind of go on top of Aaron's kind of definition of one-of-one, NFTs are also opening up this entirely new opportunity where digital goods are actually becoming unique, and it's provably unique. So if there is, you know, something that Aaron creates and then I create something different, there's mechanisms that address based on kind of the holder's perception and based on what's bid that, you know, Aaron's is the original. So when you think about that, and when you think about how the internet, you know, at least made it so easy to make things replicable and to move things around, a technology that can now actually associate that something is the true one, or, you know, a unique asset, is something that I think on the internet we've never really been able to do in a very scaled form, and that's what NFTs introduce.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. So someone dropped a comment. I can hold an NFT, but I can't take it home, right? Sounds good.
Can print it out.
Oh, but I mean, but even now it's like there's new, you know, technologies coming out with like, you know, digital frames where like you can, like, if you have like NFT art or, you know, an NFT, like it can be stored and displayed in this, you know, this frame. So like it can, you know, in a way like act as like an actual like physical piece, but like, you know, with like say like 3D art or like whatever that you have.
Yeah, yeah. So Jarrod, you read a lot about the wider impacts of NFTs, especially for somebody who's skeptical. Could you explain why we should be paying attention to this now, and especially why I'll speak for myself. I feel like I was not aware of NFTs before this calendar year, and then all of a sudden, like,
yeah,
like, oh God, like, what are these things that we need to understand all of a sudden? So why are we paying attention to this now? Why should we be if we're not? And then what is the I don't know, the opportunity that's available within this space?
Yeah, so like the technical development and the idea of NFTs have been around for like a few years now. And I mean, what is often the trend is that culture follows economics, right? There's like, you know, an economic set and then things are being built on top of it. And I think we were talking about, we like being like the industry, not me personally, but like people in crypto, we're talking about NFTs probably back in like 2017, 2018 as ways to like seek provenance, you know, to be able to kind of see, you know, the provenance of information or the true set of something. But there was never any like culture or creativity to that point really built on top of it. The reason why we talk about it now is that there's amazing, brilliant artists and people that are building incredible things with this technology, and that's usually what draws attention, right? People love culture, they love art. It's highly visual, it's highly audio, or whatever means it be, and that usually draws the most attention. That's way more exciting than kind of seeing how things work financially, right? I'd say like that draws a lot less attention, but I think why NFTs are a huge topic right now and should continue to be evolved as a topic is that it goes beyond just the product itself. Like we talk about NFT as a verb and we're like, oh, that thing is an NFT and you could purchase it and you could hold it or you could trade it. But NFT as a process to me is the more interesting thing that's happening here. It's when people are creating something, whether that's a piece of art, whether that's an article if you're a publisher, whether that's a piece of code that you're putting that you're really looking to prove ownership of. Before you start that creative process, you start minting this as an NFT, right? You want the idea to kind of be cataloged at its inception. And then you're able to kind of think about, once I do that, there's all these other things that I could do and build on top of it. So I love the fact that NFTs are driving all of this attention right now, because I think at least in the journalism world and in the writer creator space, text-based media is so hard to attribute value to. And when you start to be able to have NFT as a process and show the inception of something and where it came from, you start to be able to swat out things like, is this news real or fake? Where did it come from? Is this thing that I'm watching the actual asset that I opted into seeing, or is it something different or manipulated? So you really start to think about the idea of NFT as provenance and what that really means, not just for the creative output, but the creative process.
Yeah, that's interesting. Aaron, I feel like actually Courtney's question speaks a little bit to that. And for you, in terms of being the creator who has sold NFTs, you could maybe specifically answer a question about the balance needed to be struck for proper compensation for artists and creators and what seems like the bubble that currently exists for NFTs. Could you also share, for the follow-up is that you said you've sold 5 NFTs so far of your work?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And are you able to share, we reported in the first story, but how much you've made from that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me pull up my some documents real quick. I can tell you a couple of them.
Yeah. And I'll add something as well. We had a guest post published from another artist who sold his work for the equivalent of $250 in Ethereum, but paid the equivalent of $160 to
yeah. And so I guess before I get into more of the numbers, I think one of the important things is to realize with even just as an artist, going into the NFT space, I think it really always whether it's in the NFT space or it's physical, you always have to really value yourself as a creator first and foremost. So it's for someone coming in and they're creating, say, a one-of-one piece and selling it for $250, the equivalent of $250, that's cool and all, but in my to me, that should be priced higher because one, you have the transparency to show who's the original owner, you have the uniqueness of it being a one-of-one piece or whatever it's established to be. So it's I say when it comes to the balance of pricing it in whatever type of bubble. I feel as though people see it as a bubble, but I feel as though eventually, because there's so many people trying to jump into the space and feel like they can just do anything, that will eventually level out. But then when it comes to the prices for people pricing their NFTs, again, it always comes down to what you value yourself as a person. And so, as an artist, so for me, I came in and actually, when I first got into the space, I actually had to take a step back because I came in and I was thinking NFTs, I'm gonna just put anything out and it's whatever. But then taking a step back and realizing when it comes down to it, it's if you can be successful as an artist in the physical realm, you can be successful as an artist in the NFT space, because what people come to you as an artist for, regardless, is what they're going to be drawn to you for in the NFT space. And the thing about what NFTs is it just leaves so much more room for experimentation and tapping into new technologies and media. There's a lot of people who feel the NFT space is geared more toward 3D work, but again, it could be literally anything. So a still image, audio, mixed media, or literally anything. So it's it really comes down to what do you feel as though that whatever you're minting, what it's worth. So like to go into like some of my numbers, so like my very first NFT that I sold for $5,268.59, like the equivalent of that. And then from there, I've sold, like, it's been a fluctuation of different sales and that's just based on what I felt as though the work in and of itself would be the equivalent to in Ethereum to USD. So like after my first NFT sale, I sold another one for a little over 3,000. And then from there, like I've sold two that were somewhat around the space, one being for around like 1,600 and another one being around 1,400. So it all varies depending on what you see the value in, but it also comes down to whatever platforms that you're using to actually sell your NFTs, because a lot of the platforms, they actually give you the option to, one, list your NFT for a specific price. Someone can offer you a price for your NFT, or what a lot of people are going with now when it comes to selling their NFTs, they're actually using bidding systems. So like you might list your NFT for a reserve price of, say, an equivalent to like 500 USD. Someone can come in, meet that reserve price, but then an entire bidding war can start happening on your NFT. So you initially come in thinking like, okay, like I want to sell this for the equivalent of 500. But then, if there's interest from the community and people who, want it, it could end up selling anywhere upwards to that. And so then it's a mix of you, the artist, placing like what you feel as though the value is, but then also what collectors feel as though the value is. Because I've seen, pieces that, one might have not thought they would sell for millions of dollars. And it comes down to the collectors and what they see the value is in it.
Jarrod, are you worried about this being a bubble, and can you talk about other risks that are involved within this space?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's I went through the 2017 cycle as a CEO, actually, of an ICO company. So it was at that time, if everyone could remember, it was the crypto cycle was very focused on financial, and it was focused on and the way that we were raising funds was through ICOs. And now there's a lot more focus on the technical side of it. I'd say one, it seems like I don't think, like, even though pricing may start to equate out and may start to level out, I don't think this cycle is like the last one, in that I don't think it's going to be calming down. Again, like there may be some normalization of pricing and costs and what people are willing to pay for certain things, but the amount of VC investment in this space is just massive on the technical side. The amount of companies that are coming out that are really driving like entirely new behaviors and new commerce. You have NBA Top Shots, you have Zed Run, which is doing amazing stuff when it comes to like virtual horse racing. These things like are kind of here to stay, and there's a lot of participation and a lot of value. And what I think the crypto environment did really well this time, which wasn't accessible, 3 years ago, but also wasn't the keen focus, is that there's a lot of on-ramps, right, that have happened over the past 2 years. Coinbase has really taught people how to buy crypto in a way that you'd use your Bank of America or Wells Fargo app. Yep. Top Shots have really showed you a way that you could be able to collect and trade digital trading cards, in a very similar way that you'd be doing that in general. There's other companies like Mirror that are kind of like the medium of Web3, and others that continue to come out that are really focused on how do you incorporate existing user experiences and user flow, but on top of these new Web3 pipes and these Web3 opportunities. So like net, is there a financial bubble? I mean, sure, there's a lot of hype, and whenever there's a lot of hype, right, things get bubbled up. But the way that this is kind of progressing the creative web is first time in a long time. And I think that it's going to change not just the way that we think about commerce tied to creative works, but how we actually create, from the beginning. And I think we're seeing that. And I think anyone that you see participating in this space, there's a lot of new artists coming out in this space, which is amazing. When it starts to create a landscape for new kind of like new entry, and people that otherwise couldn't have access to do certain things now have access to do things. So, I mean, personally speaking, and like financials aside, I think it's a net positive for, you know, creators everywhere. It's a new element and a new, you know, accessible opportunity for many people to dive into.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the accessibility, and also the Aaron, you've spoken before about the like creative community that has formed around this. But real quick, Jarrod, did you say virtual horse racing?
Yes.
That's another thing I've heard of. Can you briefly explain what that is?
Yeah. So if you go to, hold on.
Yeah, drop it in the chat.
Yeah, go to I think it's z.run. Let's see. Yes. So everyone should check this out. It's like people are going bonkers about it. But basically, like, you could own virtual horses. There's virtual breeding. And they are going, as you can expect, for a lot of money. And I think it's really interesting, like when you kind of see how people are thinking about, right? Because like, I guess another way to like think about NFTs and what's happening right now is you're really blending social and finance in a way that's particularly interesting, right? Like Web2 and what we've seen through like social media platforms, we're really focused on social cred and follows and likes and retweets and things that kind of had a reputation to someone based on social actions. What we're seeing with crypto is that, right, people are able to associate ownership and cred and reputation on chain, which is new and interesting, but also you're now able to pair it with finance. So you're actually able to like drive revenue and make money or drive value off of kind of the actions that you're doing. So Zrun is like amazing because it's basically like a way for you to be able to like purchase or breed horses again, like virtually, you're not literally doing this, and like participate in like these amazing events and evolve in the ecosystem and really grow value in that ecosystem. And like, it's like hard to argue that this would all be possible without this sort of technology prior.
Yeah. Aaron, could you speak a bit about again, like the creator community that's popped up around this space and what you've experienced personally?
Literally, it's like, I feel like literally like any and everybody that I like in my circle is trying to get in on the NFT space. I still see a lot of people who don't really understand what it is or the entry into the space. But then it's just like, you know, like even now it's like when it comes to a lot of the different platforms, I think one of the biggest challenges people face, you know, just even understanding the space is how to gain access to a lot of the platforms. Just because right now, I mean, there's many different platforms that one can use to mint and sell an NFT. So like, for instance, you have Foundation, you have Rarible, you have Zora, you have Super Rare, you have Maker's Place, and like a bunch of others. And the thing about it is just, I think when it comes to like the different platforms, you have to look at them at like different levels of, say, like cars. So like you have like, say, like if you're renting, like you have like your luxury car with like some people might look at, you know, Super Rare or like Nifty Gateway as like the luxury, like you want to list on there because like that's where like you know, like Beeple, you know, who's like someone who sold like an NFT and like with Christie's for like 69 million. Or like, you know, then you have like Foundation and like other places where like that might be a step lower, but like a lot of the higher end platforms right now are either invite only or you have to submit an application and then, you know, you either get accepted or not. But then you also have the platforms that are free for, you know, open use, like OpenSea, or like, you know, Rarible is like one of those sites like that. And, you know, it's not to say that people, like if you list on some like one that's open for everybody that you won't be able to sell, because I've seen many people in my circle and even like adjacent to me do really well on these different platforms. It's just that I feel like some people feel as though they need to be on some of the more exclusive sites to succeed, but it really could just comes down to like who you are as an artist. I think another thing that kind of, you know, deters people away or like they don't understand is when it comes to like minting is also like the gas fees and like, you know, what that is on each of the different platforms. So like, speaking from my experience, up till now, I've only been using Foundation, but like I'm actually going to be like transitioning to some of the some other platforms as well. But like specifically for Foundation, there's like gas fees. So like when you mint a piece, there's the gas fees. Like when you actually list to sell, there's gas fees, and things of that nature. And some, you know, there was like when this was really starting to pop off, you know, people, you know, to go back to the example where like the person sold an NFT for 250, but it cost them like 100 something. You know, there was like there's times where like if the activity like with Ethereum is you know like at its peak, you know, you could be looking to pay like, you know, 75 to like 100 something for, you know, gas fees. But even up till now, I've been noticing that gas fees have actually been, you know, lowering, like getting lower when minting and things of that nature. So I feel as though the accessibility is kind of, you know, leveling out for more and more people to enter to the space. And I think really just it really comes down to people understanding just like how the specific platforms work and, you know, which, you know, user interface and platforms really work best for them, because each platform has its own, you know, different interface and experience and how they handle their NFT contracts and, you know, things of that nature. Because you'll have some platforms where it's like you mint your NFT, but then you can get really specific on the contract for selling it. So like there's a lot of platforms like if you sell a piece, like you as the artist on like if you're on the secondary market, if your piece sells again, like you'll get royalties from that secondary sale. Or like and that's something that you can establish like within like the initial contract that you create when minting. Or like if you do a collaboration with somebody, like you can establish like within the contract to like if the NFT sells, then like it'll automatically disperse the, you know, the percentages that you and the other person that you agreed upon, like within the contract, to automatically disperse. Like there's not a lot of like legwork that you have to do like afterwards. So it's like there's a lot of like technical points with this, but then it's like if you like when it comes to just doing your due diligence for whatever platform that you want to use as an artist, would just help benefit you in the long term, like using it.
Yeah, this is fascinating, and we're technically ending at 4:10. I want to drop at least one more question, and then I know that we have a ton of awesome comments also in the chat. So if either of you can stay a little bit longer, happy to keep the conversation going. Thank you to Courtney Wilburn especially. But since we're here talking to a bunch of developers at the developers conference, of course, this is for either of you. But what are the implications of NFTs for builders of software, regardless of their industry? What should we know about the technology behind it?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is like, it kind of goes back to what I was saying as like as NFT as process. I feel like it's a really interesting application to think about how you start to prove provenance on chain and how you start to have documentation of different sorts of product on chain. And I think like in the NFT or crypto space today, the expansion is happening so far beyond like singular categories. Like of course you see things that are happening in finance, you see things that are happening in like exchanges and things of that nature. But now, you know, as Aaron mentioned, like you see with Zora and Foundation that there's actual marketplaces that are being put up where art could be bought and sold. There's wallets like MetaMask and Rainbow, which effectively are your online identity where you could kind of keep and store money or Ethereum, right, and be able to kind of trade and transact on it while also being able to have that be the ID that stores everything, every NFT or piece of art or things that you purchased. There's horse racing, right? There's a lot of media companies are starting to kind of think about this. I mean, there's no one that's really done it in a very expansive way so far, but like Time Magazine is NFT auctioning their you know, covers, and more media companies are starting to think about how to tokenize communities. So like it's really expansive. I'd say like it's worth deeply investigating and learning about the software itself. I strongly encourage Andreessen Horowitz, here, I'll put the link in here. Andreessen Horowitz has something that they call the NFT canon, which is just a bunch of literature and information and both technical documentation as well as thought leadership around it. That's like such an amazing library of resource I just dropped there that everyone should check out. But
yeah, awesome, thank you. And sort of related question. So Juwan dropped this in the chat. Except for holding, what are the extents of rights to an NFT? For example, the right to display or project at specified locations or specific media. Where do you see the IP laws going with respect to NFT?
That's a good question. And I feel like, I mean, even now it's like, it's still, a lot of it comes down to the contracts that are established beforehand. But even now I see a lot of artists, like when selling like NFTs, because it's like, as of right now, there's really no transfer of rights when it comes to the actual like pieces that are sold as NFTs. But even then, it's like people are like with their NFTs, they're still like, they're sending or like giving the collector like actual pieces, like physical pieces associated with the pieces, like the NFT as well. Like for like even now, it's like a recent sale of mine. Like I'm sending them like a physical like fine art print of like one of the NFTs that was purchased. And so I feel like there is going to be at some point in time where it's like people are really going to start looking into like the IP when it comes to this. But right now, I mean, and I could be wrong, I haven't seen anything like really like in regards to that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Jarrod, any thoughts on IP?
yeah, I mean, like, I think NFTs, if anything, on web are supportive of IP. I feel like right now IP is pretty hard to track. You know, go to any Google image right now, and you know, if you're on your iPhone, you search an image in Google, you hold your finger over the image, you save it. There's no attribution tied to it whatsoever. That image is just like out in the ether. So, I feel like when it comes to managing IP on the internet for creators, we're at zero right now. So something like an NFT that allows, you know, provenance of that, allows, you know, some sort of ownership components, you know, perceived by the buyer is important. I think the ability for creators to be able to manage the licensing and manage permission around certain things, all are upgrades. So I feel like unfortunately, right, like we saw this, I mean, the internet being able to democratize everything, unfortunately, democratized a lot of the businesses that were built around creative works. And you've seen that across many industries. Like, I mean, Napster was one of the first, music was one of the first casualties, but that's happened across news and media and everything. So it's kind of like, I think a way that you could think about it is, you know, when the internet came, it kind of broke down all of these different barriers and democratized everything. And now, you know, we're trying to think of ways to kind of build that back up in a more productive way. I think there's ways that could be more problematic, but I think the way that we're thinking about NFTs are a productive way to enable creators.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to get one last question in about Courtney's, if you guys are able to stay for another minute or so, but
Yep.
Courtney asked, are there plans to mitigate the environmental impact on the level of cloud resources used in the maintenance of blockchain and crypto baked into any of these new communities?
Yeah, I mean, there's like it's definitely a valid discussion that I think happens is like happening appropriately. You know, there's a lot of green energy resource going into mining. It really, like, it's kind of become such a topic where it's similar to like any lobbyist type argument where there's, you know, depending on like the angle and who you read and what you read. But I'd say that there's a lot of like, it's not something that's being ignored. I think that there's a lot of focus happening there. You know, there's, you know, new functions of Ethereum being built that are focused on making those transaction fees and lowering them and making things faster. You know, there's you know, kind of investment resource going into environmental impact. So it's not something that's being ignored, but I think it's something that, you know, there's a lot of different narratives that are competing with one another that, you know, I do think should be taken seriously, but you know, I think are always being considered.
Absolutely, yeah, and just to like harp on that, because even now it's like, you know, like Ethereum 2 is being like, you know, in development, and that is supposed to be, you know, tackle some of the issues that people might bring up, so for it to be faster and like more efficient and things of that nature. So it's like, you know, as Jarrod said, like it is at like the forefront of people's minds, and it's just like it's one of those things that are like that's being tackled like on a daily basis.
Awesome. All right, great. Well, Jarrod Dicker, Aaron Ricketts, thank you both so much for being here and talking to us about NFTs. Thank you everyone for your questions too. This is a great chat. We got a lot of links in there, so please do check them out. And everybody who's watching has been participating. This has been the Technically Developers Conference, the 8th annual during Philly Tech Week. So thank you all for joining, and hope you have a great rest of your evening. Thanks, Jarrod and Aaron again. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all. This was great.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was beautiful.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.